Alright, so it's 1995 and I'm just hanging out at a local arcade and playing an amazing fighting game. After beating it for the 131st time, I turned around and I slammed my favorite drink and said to myself, this game is awesome. I'm gonna make a game that's like it, but also like with more blood and giants and stuff. I'm gonna go pitch this to somebody. Radical. So I take it over to the biggest publisher in town and sit down with their CEO, and right away I know this is not going to be easy. I started telling him about things like giant mode where both players are half the size of the stage and beating the crap out of each other, but he wasn't quite having that either. I talked to him about things like match modifiers and how those could dramatically change up the flow of combat and give people new options to play with, but he just was not into it. I showed him all the other awesome games that were already out and how like them we could have things like cheat codes, unlockable characters, and all kinds of other cool stuff. But again, he seemed like he had made up his mind. Just when it felt like I was out of options, I sat up and I thought to myself, what about merchandising? All the money we can make from this doing things like action figures and movies of the game. Even our own cereal. That seemed to be the ticket, because next he stood up and he said, we can even make a game in the movie of the game. Imagine the sales. Then he said, okay, but you only have 1 year to complete the game. It was go time. After months of development, I had hit a roadblock. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I wrote the perfect code. Why won't the code execute? Why? And as soon as I slammed my fist down on the keyboard, something crazy started happening. Next thing I knew, I was teleported to a strange place. I got up and I realized I must have accidentally programmed some code that opened a portal through space-time. Gnarly! I noticed the building behind me was my old publisher, so I broke into it and found my old computer just sitting there, almost like it was some kind of lazy plot device. And I said to myself, well, I guess I have to finish my game now, otherwise accidentally opening a time portal and coming to the future would have been completely pointless. So I went to a cafe nearby, and I got on some guy's computer, and I found out my publisher had actually gone out of business in 1997 due to a bad investment in VR. Just then the guy comes back and slams his hand down, and is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just found out my publisher's gone and I'm trying to figure out how to get money for my game. And he's like, why don't you just use Kickstarter? And I'm like, what's Kickstarter? And he's like, random people on the internet give you money and you make them awesome stuff. And I say, wow, what do I have to do to get that? Finally he says, first you have to make a campaign video that's not too pandering or derivative.
Hi, I'm future Richard James Cook, and I'm making Super Combat Fighter, the 90s arcade fighting game of your freaking dreams. I'm taking the past and future of fighting games and pulling the best parts from each to give you a game with more blood, lo-fi screens, objects to throw, falling heads, and anything else you can imagine. And also giants. We'll also be announcing a bunch of other stuff throughout the campaign, including behind the scenes, new features, characters, and all the stuff you won't want to miss. But as you saw in the story, my publisher went out of business, so I need your help to make this a reality. So check out all the awesome rewards you can get and back the Kickstarter today to achieve victory!